Welcome, Seeker, to the Order of Velvet Bite, where the hidden, the sacred, and the forbidden are revealed. I'm your host, Melissa Dawn, and we are about to explore what the world has long forgotten. All right, here we are on the Sunday afternoon live stream. Sorry, I'm an hour later. I kind of announced it. Things were a little chaotic today, getting ready, but the topic is the Dracula today with the esoteric, but I'm going to do that a little later. I want to give people a chance to stream in because I've been messing up the times so much lately. I'm not sure. I should probably stick with the 1 o'clock, which is 3 o'clock Eastern time slot. But today it was just a little bit hectic for me. It took me a little bit longer to get ready. Nice and bright background today. As you may know, I have been doing lots of renovation, painting, which I'm still going to be doing right up into the holidays probably. And so it's been a crazy time. I had burnt my finger a couple weeks ago. I was supposed to go on Walter Bosley's show, and they had to stave it off an hour, and then I burnt my finger. It's healing. It was all blistered and crazy. It's actually starting to heal, which is nice, but then I got a migraine, so I couldn't do last Thursdays. I had to take like 2 days. It put me behind where I didn't do anything. So we're kind of putting Thursdays and Sundays all in on one today. And so we're going to start with talk about some pastors that are not very good people. One of my goals with this show is we will talk about esoteric, occult type of figures, religious practices, figures and stuff. We're also going to talk about some shady stuff within our own society. And so I'm going to give it time for people to stream in. I didn't even give my husband the link to this, so we'll do that now. I'll be like, honey bunny, we're live. He's out. He's going to be driving on the road, you see. So this is why I like to do this on the Sunday I don't want to be a church. Don't get me wrong. That's not my prerogative is to be yours or anybody's church. But I certainly do want to have something where we analyze the whole society we live in and realize how religion's changing and always fluctuating. Everything's always changing. That's the reality of our world. But we want to analyze the manipulation in some religions. We want to talk about things like Aleister Crowley, which we will be talking about next Sunday for sure. That was supposed to be this Sunday. But we want to talk about people who are sketchy. So I'm going to pop here. I'm going to give you a sneak peek. We will be doing this presentation in a little bit, but I'm going to wait for some of you to stream in. We've got some stuff to cover on Pastor Rob McCoy, who's deeply involved in the Charlie Kirk stuff. I want to point some things out about him. I also want to talk about that ASMR. Do you guys know what that is? We're going to talk about that because it drives me crazy. But we're going to talk about that. And then I got a little thing on Trump. And I'm sorry if you love Trump. We supported Trump over Kamala because Kamala is crazy. But we're realizing they're all crazy. But I got a little thing on Trump that I'm going to discuss. A poem that he read. That was part of the reason why I was becoming suspicious of him. He read it like 8 years ago. And then he read it again when he was campaigning before he won last November. And I want to play it for you. I want to talk about this poem because I think it was a massive, like, sneaky projection, right? It's a way that is projection. So I see a few of you are streaming in right now. Kirby, thank you for coming in. We're going to be covering the Dracula content probably in about half an hour or so. We'll talk a little bit on spirituality, what's going on in the evangelical church and stuff like that. We're going to talk about that first, and then we'll get into Dracula. I've got a very good presentation. Now, remember, guys, the stuff on Dracula, this slideshow here, will pop back into this screen, is available for the patrons and the Substackers. I've uploaded it. I've uploaded the link where you can download it for paid subscribers. and I will highlight where that is. Of course, there is now a Patreon page. And I believe at the $5 level and up, you can get access to that, but you can support for $2, for $3, for $5. You can also buy things individually. You don't even have to subscribe. You can just buy a one-off. It is www.patreon.com/CW/Order of Velvet Bite. The Substack is melissadonharris.substack.com, and all of those links are always on the website at melissadonharris.com. Easy peasy. And we will be going through this PDF. It's a 17-page zine, I like to call it, that I spent a few days designing and getting the information together. It was fun. Oh, we went to a Jam and Rock big doodad at the convention center. It was huge. There's lots of people there selling their rocks and gem, and we went with this Afghanistan guy and bought a couple of things. He seemed to know his stuff, and I don't have them with me. I think I got an amethyst, and my husband got a couple of things. And I was looking at their tarot cards. Is it just me, or have tarot cards turned into a block of shit lately? I'm looking at their decks, and they were all like, the Halloween tarot deck, like the Six of Pumpkins, the Ace of Black Cats. I don't know. That's weird. That's not even a proper archetype for a tarot card. It just seems like everybody's just making up, it's like, it's just like, okay, it's my version of the tarot card. It can be anything it wants. It doesn't have to follow any kind of logic or archetype or anything. I'm not sure I like that. So I definitely did not buy any tarot cards, but I bought an amethyst. Well, like a little pendant thing. I don't even wear jewelry. I'm not a big jewelry person, but I bought it. So we'll see what I do with it. I have this rock. I don't know what's up with this rock. You can see it here. I can't even remember what it's called, but I'm always holding it. I feel like it grounds me. And I don't know if you guys listening to this show, the Sunday show, which tends to be more spiritual, if you have a rock that grounds you, let me know in the comments. Now, if you guys have been listening to the news lately, which I've been trying so hard to avoid, you will have heard a lot about the Charlie Kirk case. It's been over 2 months, and people are still talking about it because it is highly suspicious. And one of the pastors that is massively, massively involved, Rob McCoy, his son was actually there, Mikey McCoy. And he was the one who was identified as, after Charlie Kirk got shot, he's literally on his phone and he just walks away like, There's been some crazy stuff. People have been investigating him, and they found some speeches that he did. And as they were streaming and showing these really weird speeches, he started to delete them. He was attacking Ian Carroll. Like, they think, allegedly, they're all a bunch of trolls. They'll show up on your stream on Zoom or Twitch, and then they'll get so many people to spam your chat that Twitch shuts you down. That's the future, my friends. The future is corporations, companies, and people and churches attacking online, virtual attack, like T2 attack, like crazy stuff like that. But that's how they do it. And this pastor, I'll share my screen here. Let's see if I can add another scene with media right here. Let's go put me a little bit. No, we want that. We want it like that. There we go. This pastor was super sus. I want to share something about him because I want to talk about him, and I want to talk about the evangelical church and why look, the evangelical church is a big, huge issue. It's a big problem because we got that. Does that look weird? It kind of does look weird. Let's pop it. I want it bigger. There we go. There we go. We'll do it that way. That's a little bit better. The evangelical church is a really big issue, and one of the reasons why is because it is like literally infiltrated with a lot of crazy stuff. And this guy is one of them. And suddenly he became highly involved with TPUSA. He knows Charlie Kirk. He is saying he's the greatest friends with him. And information shows something else. Tex and Candace and other people are showing something very, very different. Let's see. Veronica, hi. How is stream going? Hi, Veronica. Thank you for showing up from Twitch. Don't forget to subscribe. We're here Sundays, Wednesday, Thursdays, live. So don't forget that. But there's something very disturbing. We're getting back to Rob McQuay. There's something very disturbing, and people have been noticing that he was highly involved. There's some sus stuff going on. A lot of people are being targeted who even question any narrative of Charlie Kirk. They're being called insensitive. They don't love this. They're like, you must hate his wife. You must be accusing his wife. You must be doing this, this, and that. And it's really crazy because people, if you wanted to get to the truth, you wouldn't mind people investigating, because clearly the FBI hasn't investigated anything because they already know who did it. Hello, Jacqueline from Cumbria, England. Thank you so much. Now, Rob McCoy was caught saying some really strange commentary. You know, if you're a pastor or you're a priest, when you go to church, your whole point is to talk about religious stuff, right? Like, honestly, you're supposed to talk about Bible scriptures and inspiring people, but not these churches. And you'll see this in mega churches too. Lately, these mega churches are making it all about politics, grandstanding for a certain country in the Middle East. They're making it about manipulating people and smear campaigning. They're like, hey, I know this is a church and it's supposed to be a holy place, but let's talk about Candace Owens and smear campaign her and lie about her, essentially. Of course, they don't say those words, but that's what they mean. And it's really obvious to me. I don't know how evangelicals, there's some evangelicals who aren't liking this and thinking this is shady, and then there's some who are going with it because they don't want to speak out. But if I'm in church and I show up there for some kind of service and I start hearing them talking about politics, I'm going to be sus. And let's hear what this video's a clip of some of the stuff that he was saying, and he's been deleting it. And in fact, people were live streaming the stuff he had put up on the internet about his speeches in front of his church. Like, he doesn't look very ministerly to me. And while they were live streaming, he started like basically removing it from the public during their live stream. So we're going to hear what he said. And so in the comments, people are saying, Masood agent. It's crazy. And remember, this guy's son was there at Charlie Kirk's assassination, and people are really suspicious about how they're involved. And there's a lot of suspicions about a lot of TPUSA perhaps being, doing some laundry. Let's just put it that way. Check this clip out.
And we don't have the luxury of petty divisions over silly things. Go work it out. I mean, just go fix it. And what's really cool is when you do that, you go, you know what? You have this quirky thing that's driving me nuts. When you eat your food, and I saw it when we were at the men's breakfast, you do this. I had a teacher that did that, and it was the most annoying thing, and that teacher was awful to me, and I want to kill you. And that's my deal, not yours. And I just want to tell you, that's why I've been acting the way I have.
Okay, I don't know. Is he a stand-up comic or is he a spiritual leader? We're going to talk about ASMR in a minute, so it's funny that he's making these weird, creepy sounds. Let's keep listening to him. Well, let's see where he goes and what he says. What is he saying, and what is his real message? Because I'm pretty sure he's been hired to smear anyone who's questioning a certain war in the Middle East.
And they'll go, man, I didn't know. I'll try not to around you like that. Work through it. Work through it. We don't have the luxury of division. Because in unity and humility, we are an unstoppable force. That's why Paul when he was closing out the letter to what would become probably the most profound of all the churches, the church at Rome. He dropped that in. He said, I beseech you, I beg you, don't allow division or offense. Work through it, resolve it, and if it doesn't, just put a mark on them. Keep an eye on them.
Now, is that really what Paul in the Bible, is that really what he said? Because I have a feeling that he said something and then this guy is reinterpreting it. And this is what evangelical and these pastors always do. They make so much money. And here's the gross thing about what they do with their spirituality and religion, and what's really sad, but how so many Americans buy it and laugh and think he's funny. And, oh, wow, Pastor Rob McCoy is so charming and witty. I'd be wary of someone who's charming and witty, is that this is all about money for them, and they make a lot of money doing this. And I really think they blaspheme the Bible. I think the Bible in and of itself was propaganda anyways from the get-go, done by, the Roman emperor and all that to keep the empire together under the guise of the Christian church, sort of basically infiltrating Christianity. But you can bet he's twisting it for his own political purposes. Let's keep listening to him.
And if it gets to one or two offenses and they're not willing to change and they're causing problems, then bring it to the Matthew 18 sector. It's healthy. We're a family. That's how we do it. And I pray that the message ministered to you. It ministered to me. And
okay, let's see this one here, because I think this guy is really going to tell you how Rob McCoy.
How much research I've done. How much research I've done. How much research I've done.
Okay.
How much research I've done. How much research I've done. How much.
Okay, for some reason, that was a 1:17 video, and it just is keeps repeating over and over again. The last second of it. So bizarre. Let's see here. I got some more. Okay. Here it is. I think this is it.
behold, he teaches it, though he himself doesn't ascribe to it. That's fine. He can do that. And I love the fact that's not Scopio. Scopio is you want to keep eye on somebody that they're here. It's kind of like the guy who goes to the young adults. I don't know if this is happening. I'm not saying this because this is an issue. Please, I don't know. But when I used to run the young adults when I was at Calvary Chapel in San Jose,
Okay, there's a lot of stuff about Calvary Chapel. If you don't know anything about Calvary Chapel, it started off as a good ministry, but it's been infiltrated. It ran out of California somewhere. It has been infiltrated by him, Mossad, and different agencies, perhaps CIA, and it's being used to manipulate people. 100% it has been used to manipulate people, and it's literally like a front for some kind of money laundering. That's what they do. So this guy, Rob McCoy, allegedly comes in, creates all sorts of drama within the Calvary Church, makes it look like, like there's bad stuff happening, trying to trash it. Then he takes over the Calvary Church because people are like, whoa, that, it's got bad vibes, because he put the bad vibes there on purpose so he can take over it. And then he starts using it as a way to manipulate people and launder money. So this guy, that's what he has done with the Calvary Church. Just to let you know.
Always knew that guy who came in. He has no interest in Bible studies. He's looking for a wife. He is highly suspect. You're wondering if he's not on somebody's list somewhere. Like this guy's problematic. Just moving from one seat to the next to the point.
I mean, does this guy really feel like a calm, pious pastor that cares about you? This guy feels like a huckster. This guy feels like he's a manipulative douchebag, and that's exactly what he is. And he's highly tied into TPUSA. Suddenly he became Charlie's new pastor, and his son, I think they were planning on replacing Charlie with his son. That's my guess, and that's alleged.
Where every woman is uncomfortable, you got to go over there and Scopio the guy. And you kind of sit people next to him going, you're not moving, just pay attention.
So I've never heard that word Scopio I'm assuming it means like scope them out, but they've obviously got their own language.
Into the Bible study. But there's a cute, no. Adam rested in the Lord, and the Lord brought Eve to him. Don't do anything. Just sit down and do your Bible study. And soon enough, they'll leave. Scopio is kind of like the Secret Service for the president. They're keeping an eye on him. Sometimes they don't do very well. Note those who cause divisions and offenses. This is who we're looking for. They're causing divisions and they're teaching doctrine contrary to what we teach. This has in mind both those who would divide God's people, cause divisions, and those who would deceive God's people, offenses contrary.
Okay. So we're just going to talk about that because apparently it gets worse. He's literally telling his ministry in those couple of clips that people had, because they're deleting them like crazy. He's telling people, scope people out. Basically, it's like a communist thing where they're telling you, watch people, and if they say anything that we don't teach, you report them to us. And they're also going into their ministries and preaching like, hey, Candace Owen is bad, this person is bad, anyone who questions Israel is bad, anyone who questions anything is bad that we don't teach. And this guy's, he infiltrated that Calvary church and turned it into a allegedly money laundering business. That is what's out there today, guys. That is the main religious breath out in America today. And I don't know what its age group is. I'm here. We're going to be talking about the esoteric in Dracula very shortly. So we're going to go on to some other things. I think we might leave the ASMR till the end. It's kind of a creepy thing, but it's really disturbing that this is what religion is, and people can't see that this is manipulation. 100%. It's disturbing. He's basically instructing people to kind of do what the Communist Social Party would do. Is get people to report people in. We're going to Scopio them. He says Scopio. And look, cults and stuff often make up their own words to mean things, so people don't really know what they're talking about, making it confused. So Scopio, that's interesting. Do you find that interesting? I find that interesting. So you can Scopio them. You better Scopio Rob McCoy, because there's something really wrong with that man. He's highly tied in to TPUSA. I think TPUSA had been infiltrated and they've taken it away from Charlie Kirk, and they're going to use it to try and manipulate young minds across the nation, basically to forever vote for them. And this has to be counteracted. I hope it goes down. I hope, and a lot of young people are calling it out. Thank goodness they see the bullshit for what it is. But you got to be aware of stuff like this. These mega churches, and I would include Mormonism, and I'm not talking about your regular person who attends a Mormon church. I'm talking about the people in power. They're going to use this. They were highly involved, I believe. The powerful people in Charlie Kirk, they're going to be using this stuff for their own power, and more and more and more. It's never enough. Their own power. Everything about this whole system is about these rich people having more power. There's nothing spiritual there. You'd be better off to just go meditate in your own room by yourself. Seriously. And it's why on this show I always talk about not going to these kind of events. I include these mega church events. To not go to these events, that you go look at some of these mega church events, and it's like garish. It's like a blasphemy. I can't even explain to you how gross it feels. It doesn't feel spiritual. It feels like a hedonistic rock show. And they're like, hey, and it's like all these lights and flash, and it's like it's trying to hypnotize you and seduce you. And of course, they're always asking for money. You know, they can never have enough of your money. They can never have enough of your attention. They want more and more and more. I am in the wrong business, I guess. I'm in the wrong business. But that is, I wanted to talk about that because it's so important not to go to their big events, not to wear their logos, and not to give them money. Why do people donate to these churches who are not spiritual? They don't even pay taxes, and you're paying taxes and you're giving them money. But yet you won't support someone who's doing a small podcast These people, they'll give it to these pastors because they think they're legit connected to God. But they wouldn't give to, somebody else who's running a show and criticizing. It just baffles me. It baffles me how we play into this system and we complain about it all the time. But we give into it. Now this comes to my next point before we go on to the presentation about Dracula, because we're merging. It's a Sunday merge day. And these guys are highly tied to Donald Trump. Obviously, they supported him. Many of us did. Many of us were hoping that Donald Trump would do a decent job. And Donald Trump has, cried. Not cried. That's not the word. He has used a lot of religious rhetoric, especially when he was apparently so-called attempted assassination. And I believe that, that was all a stage, a play, because if they wanted to, he would have been gone. Guaranteed. And he uses a lot of these religious callings to manipulate his voters, and I don't think it's going to work on the young voters, because the part that's growing in religion isn't necessarily Catholicism or this evangelical. A lot of people are going to Orthodox, which is interesting. They're going to Orthodox, but I was just getting more and more suspicious of Trump. I'm suspicious of both parties, as you should be, because they're all controlled by the same people at the very top. But I was suspicious of Trump because his whole court case looked suspicious. There's a lot of things that look suspicious, and his religious sort of like, God bless you, I'm here to do a job for God. I was like, okay. I knew who he was talking about. But everything seemed kind of fake. And then when Marion Adelson gave him like $100 million, I knew for sure he was going to be compromised, and maybe had always been. But one day, this speech is from 8 years ago, but he repeated this poem when he was campaigning in 2024. And when I heard him say this poem, it literally stopped me in my tracks. And I remember thinking, he says he's talking about immigrants coming in. But I remember listening to it thinking, I think he's talking about himself. I think I'm right. I think he's going to stab he's not. He's just lying to people and manipulating them, almost like he's almost like a pastor. He's almost like one of these mega church pastors with his own twist, if you can be honest. I'm going to play this poem. You can leave in the comments later if you're coming by. You can tell me what you think. Here it is. It's called The Snake. And you can see if you think this is a massive projection and they've been playing their bass all along, because this was from 8 years ago and they repeated this in 2024. Check it out.
Has heard the poem called The Snake. So I have it. Does anybody want to hear it again? You sure? Are you sure? Okay. So let's dedicate this to General Kelly, the Border Patrol, and the ICE agents for doing such an incredible job. Right? This was written by Al Wilson a long time ago.
And I pause it. And I know you think this is supposed to be Spiritual Sunday. What does this have to do with spirituality? A lot. Because I'm trying to show everybody how he's manipulating his audience's spirituality and how they keep us tied in and not. I don't even know if I have it still uploaded. I don't think I do. I don't. But there's that tree of life picture, and it starts at the base and it goes all the way up to the top. And they're always pulling us into this and keeping us at the base of that tree of life in the material with stuff like this and nonsensical stuff, so that we don't go and explore and expand and actually get in touch with the real inner God that's inside of all of us. And my point for this isn't to be like left, right, whatever. Look, I don't care who you voted for. You pretty much had a choice you were pretty much stuffed in between a shit sandwich for the choices you had between the two parties. It was dreadful. My point is just to show you exactly how he's actually projecting and manipulative. And this poem should cause you, now that you see Trump going to war, not deporting people, not doing the things they promised MAGA, going tons of war, saying Epstein who and all that stuff. I think this poem kind of in hindsight can kind of teach you something about politics and mega churches, and they're very similar. And all these events and all these churches preaching, they have something similar. I guess they got a pizzazz that I don't have. Or maybe I'd have more followers. But anyways, let's keep watching this.
And I thought of it having to do with our borders and people coming in. And we know what we're going to have. We're going to have problems. We have to very, very carefully vet. We have to be smart. We have to be vigilant. So here it is, the snake. It's called the snake. On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty-colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Poor thing," she cried, "I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you." The border. "Take me in, O tender woman."
So he says, I'll take care of you. The border. He doesn't mean the border.
"Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk.
So they've taken them in. She's nursing the snake. She's giving the snake strength. That's where we're at, guys. Remember this. I'm trying to show you how they manipulate people. This isn't about left or right. I'm showing you the system and how it manipulates people. And Donald Trump's just an actor. Really, let's be honest.
She hurried home from work that night, and as soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. "Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed that vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. "You're so beautiful," she cried. "But if I hadn't brought you in by now, oh heavens, you would have died." She stroked.
We'll pause that right there. And this is a lesson here, spiritual lesson for you all, that we take this in and we allow them to live. We give them our money, we give them our energy, we show up their events, we wear their logos. This is projection, 100%. Let's continue on.
His pretty skin again and kissed him and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. "Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. "I have saved you," cried the woman, "and you've bitten me, heavens, why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die." "Oh, shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in."
Okay. So that is the snake. And that's a projection. 100%. When I heard him say it, when I heard Trump say it, I was like, he was talking about himself and the politicians. He 100% was. So that was 100% a projection. Matthew Lee Hamilton says, sorry, I'm late. It's okay. We haven't got to the Dracula part, Matthew. I was starting late as well. So we are going to, in a bit, get to the Dracula part. But I want to finish off this thing that I was talking about Trump and his snake poem. You guys can go look it up. Just type Donald Trump, the snake. poem or snake poem, Donald Trump, and you'll see it. He did that 8 years ago. He also did it in some of the speeches. You can see people mouthing it in the background like they know his poem, what he's going to say. And what they don't realize is they're the naive person and Donald Trump's the snake and the whole system is the snake that's going to bite them. They think the snake, they've got them to believe that the snake is the horrible people at the border coming in. And it's all these corporations who are bringing mass immigrants in because they want them for slave labor. It suits them. And then they disenfranchise Americans. This is how they've always done it. They've always done this for probably centuries, thousands of years. But the whole point in what I'm telling you, the dynamics of that is, and it's why they want you in mass crowds, whether it's a church or a rally like that, or in school or anything like that. Just one second. One of the reasons they want you in a group is that you won't say anything. And when you're around masses of people, you'll lose your independence and you'll just say what the other people say. And if they have a really enigmatic speaker like Donald Trump, who I know he uses simple words, mega, huge, large. If you have a speaker like that, he can engage you, charming, witty, funny, and you'll believe him. And you won't if you do shout up and go you're they'll just remove you from the room or they'll edit it to look like something else. And I'm not saying no one has done Trump dirty and edited him to look bizarre or edited him to say things he hasn't said, but that's the drama, that's the play. They have to keep you playing against each other. So the other side's purpose is to pretend like they're against Trump, so they have this battle, divide the people, and it just goes on and on. But when you go to any of these events, they can manipulate you right away when you're around masses of people because you're not going to say anything. And if you did, your voice would drown out. There's too many people and you're going to nod and everyone's going to laugh. And when someone else laughs, you will laugh, even if you don't think it's funny. And you're not going to catch on to that unless you have a total out of body experience there. You're not going to catch on to the fact that you were the victim and he was the snake and he was projecting. And I almost think they write this stuff on purpose and they do this on purpose as a joke, like they get a kick out of it. And it's why I tell people, don't go to these events. Don't go and put their logos on and give them money and show up in these massive events. Even if you go to a soccer, like rugby game or anything like that, like shit can hit the fan and things will go crazy. So don't do it. It's not worth it. And these politicians, it doesn't matter who they are. They're all trained. I believe they're all Manchurian candidates, left, right, center. They're all trained to manipulate and give speeches. And the reason they got Trump in is because they knew the Tea Party was out. They knew they had a disenfranchised part of the population that they had to manipulate and get under control. Trump may have created the word MAGA, but he infiltrated that part of the population with it. It's dying. It's kicking off. It's because people are figuring it out. But I guarantee you, any other movements that come, the system's going to try to infiltrate it. If they're holding mass rallies, if they're doing all this stuff and it has a lot of money and views behind it, proceed with caution. Don't give them any money. That's for sure. And limit your attention to it because they want your money, your attention, your time, because that gives them time to change your mind. You want to be aware of all different information, but you certainly don't want to do that. And when I heard him saying that poem during the elections, I was like, oh my God. I was like, and we had supported him because the other side was absolutely bonkers crazy. But I think that was on purpose. I think, like I said, I think it's like they're all players on the stage. And I think they purposely go crazy. They purposely do these things. So it's like, woo, you're back and forth. You're back and forth. You have to remove yourself from their whole system and take control of your own mind and your spirituality. And they don't want you to. That's why they have like all these massive concerts. They keep everything as engaging. These mega churches are like I seen mega churches with fire shooting up and red backgrounds and people pole dancing at mega churches that are supposed to be Christian. Paul from Newcastle says time controllers. It's absolutely batshit crazy. And there's so many Americans, like I see them, they're standing at the events and they're like, they're hypnotized, they're mesmerized. And we're going to be talking about mesmerizing and hypnotizing when we talk about Dracula and the novel and Victorian Occult revival. But I would sooner rather see you just sit at home and meditate and remove your mind from that and focus on things that you want and that you want to see in life and get stable before you go out into the world and get this stuff. Your house doesn't have to be perfect clean. Don't be Jordan Peterson it, but you need to be sure of who you are. Because if you're going out and you're desperate and you want a job and you're going, Donald Trump will do it for me. You've just given all your power away to Donald Trump. Should we talk about, do you guys know what ASMR are? Should we talk about that? So like two things from there. I showed you two different types of orators. Donald Trump and Pastor Rob McCoy. Both manipulating people at different levels. Obviously Donald Trump at a much bigger level. And I think they're going to crash and burn. I think the systems use them for what they can. And Trump can't run anymore. He's going to be out. So I don't expect to see anything from Trump anymore. I don't know what they're going to do. Perhaps they'll replace Trump with somebody else and say, "Oh, we got rid of Trump," or it will swing. I know the Republicans are going to lose the midterms 100% because it's crazy. The war, the who's Epstein and all this stuff. And he's just, people said to me, Trump has betrayed himself. And I'm like, no, Trump has betrayed you. And Trump hasn't betrayed himself. Trump has revealed himself, and he was revealing who he really is all along, but you can't see it. It's just, and it's not the same thing happens on the Democrat side, where they say all these things and they do all the theatrics and they kneel and say they're anti-racist, but they're sitting here stealing your money and insider trading and doing all this crazy stuff behind the scene that's immoral. They both sides do it because they're all together in this elite system. And it's going to be so exciting. We're going to have Palantir and we're going to have Larry Ellison, all these people watching everything we do so they can throw us in jail when they don't like it and cut us off from our banking. It's going to be a great time. We're going to have fun. Yeah. And it's all shit. It's all shit. And we're not going to get anything that we want unless you pull your mind out of the system. Let's talk about ASMR. We'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll talk about Dracula. I'm going to show you guys. I got it right here. We're going to talk about Dracula, but I want to talk about this ASMR. This is driving me crazy and I have to talk about it. We are going to go to Dracula and the Victorian Occult revival, but we will take a break. We'll talk about ASMR. And I'm going to tell you what that is. You're, what the hell is that shit? We're going to talk about ASMR and why it drives me crazy. And then we'll get into the Gothic part that I didn't do on Thursday because I was raving with a migraine, but we will get into it. It's one of the favorite things I like to talk about is Dracula and how the occult, it literally manifested at a time of Victorian occult revival. It emerged out of it. It's almost like a ritual. Really. But ASMR, I'm going to share my screen again because this stuff drives me crazy. And for those of you who don't know, maybe you're not in on the ASMR. I didn't know what it was either. And I kept seeing all these TikTok videos that drove me insane. I'm like, well, what are these bimbos doing? ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And it's a term for a tingling, static-like sensation that starts on the scalp and moves down the back of the neck and upper spine. It's triggered by specific visual and auditory stimuli, such as whispering, tapping, personal attention, and slow movements, and is often used to promote relaxation or sleep. So there's this trend that people are doing these ASMR videos where they're making all these sounds. You can go Google it, but they're making all these sounds that are supposed to trigger you to relax. And I see these videos and I want to reach through the screen, and I don't want to promote violence, my friends, but it like agitates me to no extent. I could never go to sleep listening to this ridiculous nonsense, but I'm going to force you to listen to it with me now. because I'm cruel and I'm mean like that. It's fun. Some of it's ridiculous and funny, but there's people who are willing to give these chicks money so they can go like that. Seriously, it's ridiculous. I gotta stop. I'm gonna punch myself. Whew. Let's go find it on TikTok because there's some ridiculous videos. And this is what people like to do. They're like, oh my God, look at this blonde chick. She's sucking on something, crunching and munching. Yeah, Paul says you can make a lot of money. This is how crazy we are. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing my calling. Maybe I should be like belching and burping and slurping and stomping and crunching and crumpling on this channel and everybody can pay me. Okay, let's watch this video. Oh God. Total sexual innuendo, by the way. So these girls aren't just going, she's making it look like she's sucking and you know what, on purpose.
You're good.
Oh God. Oh my God. I can't. I'm gonna throw up. Someone in the comments says, y'all, SMR ain't for everyone. It's very relaxing for some people. If you don't like it, keep scrolling. Shut up, Gabby, you retard. I gotta shut that one up. They're obviously they've got the sound very close to the microphone, so it triple, double picks up how irritating they are. So here, this one, I don't know. This one looks a little more pro. Let's see what this one's about. That one's pretty tame. You know, they're not trying to make it look like they're doing something sexual. But a lot of them are. Let's check out this chick and we'll move on. Oh, look at that. Psychedelic. See, it still irritates me. People pay people to do this. This is how I know our society is going to crash. This is how I know we're going to hell. I don't even believe in hell, but we're going there. This is how I know, because of this shit, and people can make money off this. I talked to my husband. We should be like together on a video to make money. We got to find something to trend, Mike. We really do. I guess we can be retards together, and I can gurgle and slop, and you can, I don't know, maybe people like it, like if you like load a gun or something like that. I don't know, but this is driving me nuts. I'm torturing myself. Look, seriously, before I even come on the podcast, I literally sponge myself with makeup. I should just literally show up for the podcast and do my makeup and sponge myself like all of these people do. See those tacky nails? That like they're too much. It's getting to the point where it's gaudy. Like I like just classic stuff, and it's like it's that they're all bejeweled. Like it's like I have to show how extravagant I am with 500 rings and blingy bling bling. It's so okay. I gotta stop. I'm gonna drive you guys all crazy because it irritates me. Fall asleep to my tacky nails and my perfume bottle and my makeup sponge and my slurping. And you know, when I was young, we're gonna stop, because if I had slurped like that at a friend's house and made sound, I would have been slapped in the face for bad manners. Serious to God. you wouldn't have got away with that. And now people make tons of money. People make tons of money on the craziest stuff. It's obvious we have some really dark shadow, weird stuff, and people like creepy things. Like they like getting whipped, they like getting beat, they like slurping, they like watching people eat and slurp and chomp. You see the crumble videos. They're shoving a donut, 1,000 calories with diabetes on the side in their faces, and they're slurping and they're chomping, and people watch it. I can't. I just can't do it. The elephant man miss out. Yeah. Well, I got to think of something. I could go on TikTok and make a profit. People like follow me if I'm just standing there making weird sounds. I gotta get a new job here. I'm trying to give moral advice and talk about topics, and I'm missing out. I should be doing sound effects and weird irritating stuff. See, it does it. It goes down my head and down my spine, but it irritates me. It doesn't relax me. It's like, oh, you're so irritating. What are you doing? I guess there's some people who just like that feeling. I don't know. I would rather meditate and open it. Okay. Road Trip, that's not the original poem from him or whoever wrote it from. It's a copy. It's okay, but here's the thing. That's not the point about the original poem. The point is he read it and it's a projection. So you're kind of Road Trip, you're kind of missing the point of it. That's him saying the poem. They might have changed it, but the point is the story is still the same. It still has the same ending. The point is it's a projection. It's a projection. He's the snake and everybody else is about to get it. So you kind of miss the point there. I'm not trying to be rude to you, but you're missing the point. Okay, so we're going to do a break. We've been in about an hour. I'm going to take a 5-minute break and then I'm going to come back and then we're going to get into Dracula. I'm going to leave you guys with this. I'm going to turn a little bit of music on. Hang tight. I'm only going to be 5 minutes because I have to get up, check the dogs, and make sure that my voice can go for another hour. Sunday, fun day. I should stream for 24 hours. You see how many views I can get, how I can top it up. But we'll be right back. I'm going to put a little bit of music on for you guys, and you can have a look there, and it won't be long. Hello, everybody. We'll pause that music for you. We are back. We took a little break, looked after the doggos. Speaking of Egypt, that was actually kind of, Indian music, India, Egypt, East meets West. We're going to be obviously covering that in a few moments here with Dracula. But apparently they are going to do another mummy movie. Like part 4 with Brendan Fraser. So one of my favorite movies, actually, I know. It was one of my favorite movies. I loved it. It was made in 1999. It was one of my favorite movies. And we're going to get it. We'll briefly talk about that Egyptomania when we're talking about this. I hope some of you are in the room. I don't know who. We got still some of you on YouTube. Some of you are, I don't know, maybe you're taking a bathroom break yourself. But remember, of course, subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, share, throw in a comment. And if you guys are partial, we're not ready for that yet. If you guys are partial to the sort of Egypt religion and learning about it, my friend Matthew, who actually is in the audience, he has a book series. He's doing books on Egypt. He does a tarot series. I believe he is ME author over at TikTok. And you can look him up, Matthew Lee Embleton. He sells books. Egypt. That's where he's focusing on. Really interesting stuff. Because this is something that comes out of the whole occult revival that happened in Victoriana time. And so when we start this kind of conversation about Dracula, the novel, we're going to start way before Dracula is a thing. And we're going to talk about a little history and why we even have an occult revival that happens. Okay, so it's MLE author. MLE author. He's got some videos up over MLE author over on TikTok. And then you can always get his books. He talks about Egypt, but Egypt features in this occult revival that happens in England and the rest of Europe. And of course, it really starts at the time of Napoleon. But we're going to go over this on this review here. Hope you guys are all finding yourself well today. It is storming here and pretty dark. I'm probably going to have to walk they hate rain, so they're probably not going to go out in the yard. They will probably make me walk them after because they're being stinkers. But what we really have here going on is a colonialistic society that's been spurred on, in my opinion, by the rise of technology. We got different technology that rises in the British Empire and allows it to master and expand all over the world, essentially. And so with that expansion, obviously they start mastering other countries, but that's the whole thing. You think, well, they'll master other countries, but what starts happening is those other countries have an influence on them. And of course, their perception of what those religions were. You get figures like Aleister Crowley, who, when you look at those figures like Aleister Crowley, Gerald Gardner, they were all wealthy, from wealthy families, and they were able to travel, and they kind of made their own version of the religion. It was more like a modern version by using concepts that they thought were in those ancient religions and channeling and possibly imagination and fantasy as well. But yeah, we're mainly focusing those figures. We might mention them a little bit, but our focus is Bram Stoker, obviously, and how he was affected by that, and essentially how that came to play in London, and how that affected the culture, and how it affected literary culture, the arts, architecture, all that stuff. And out of all that, we have the novel Dracula. So we're going to keep going through here. Remember, this is available. This PDF is available for all paid subscribers on Substack and Patreon. I showed you the links up there. Oh, Eric, welcome. Eric says, I'm almost finished with the book. Thanks for going live. Hope you're feeling better. I am feeling much better. Every once in a while, a migraine comes along, and when it does, I know it's going to be a 2-day thing where I won't be doing very much. So we're going to start with science and the oculus, the all-seeing eye. We're going to talk about right here the Protestant Reformation, which was met by the Catholic Reformation. Now, most of you know what the Protestant Reformation was. That is sort of when you had several people, Martin Luther, kind of denying the Catholic Church. King Henry VIII did it, but he did it for different reasons. He wanted a divorce, of course. That's the common history. But the Catholic Church had to meet that. When you start splitting up, the main power source has to do some kind of control. It has to fight back, strike back. So it had a Catholic Reformation. You see all sorts of manipulative tactic and trying to make people obey the church. And out of that, you see secret societies that start to form, and their whole guise is to search for knowledge, search for it undetected, so nobody knows who they are. This is in response to the Catholic Church, and a lot of people today will say, "Oh, the all-seeing demon eye," but really, the oculus that we have it on our dollar. It started out originally. It was adapted by secret societies because it was a way to hide their practices under the guise of optometry. They were saying, "Oh, we're studying the eye for people," but they were studying a lot more than that. They were looking into ancient studies and ritualistic and spiritual stuff as well, and rituals that would have been deemed illegal by the church and punishable, possibly harshly, by death. So the original, like I said, the concept was to hide their rituals and scientific research. Like, it was illegal to exhume a body and or do an autopsy on a body. That was considered unholy. So they had to hide it under certain things. And one of the ways that secret societies did it was they had this eye as an emblem, so it would look like optometry. The eye was originally adapted by the 13 colonies of America to represent the eye of God. And you guys are like, well, what are you talking about? Freemason. Yeah, they were a secret society. They had to hide from the church originally. But of course, over time, what happens is it gets infiltrated. Everything gets infiltrated. So that's why you have what we see today. There we go. Someone was just advertising on my Twitch channel. So that's why you have what you see today, is it gets infiltrated. And this show isn't about that infiltration. Maybe we'll do it at another time. That's just me basically saying the eye represented God. And that's why I always say Christianity can't release us from the one New World Order, because it actually has symbolism of it. And that New World Order is the same idea of monotheism, which is one God rules us and watches us all the time, and you got Palantir. All these people are adapting into all this basically fantasy stuff, a control system, made up propaganda of this one God watching us like a pervert. Now, occult revival and colonialism. I touched on that very briefly. It's like scientific exploration advance. A lot of this had to do with these secret societies. They were doing things in secret, and it probably just became more accepted. Technology survives. In 1450, we have the Gutenberg press that emerged. We could go all over the place with that. Obviously caused religion. It was good for Catholicism. You get more prints of Bibles, but also people can read the Bible now. But also the steam engine happens crudely in 1698, and it developed, and that starts the Industrial Revolution. You've got trains now. People can travel faster, steam ships, all that stuff. All these things allow for this British Empire to expand more. The Gutenberg press obviously is in Germany. There's lots of amazing inventions out of Germany. So the world was beginning to change. Members of the elite began to travel, to explore. One could say that this is an initiate of earliest forms of the globalization we know today. Obviously, trade happened for thousands of years, but this was going to be happening on a massive scale, and they were going to be able to be places in a shorter period of time, much faster than it would have been before. You've got train, yes, horseback's casual, but you've got steamships. All these ways are going to make it so that these empires, the British Empire, can expand faster, farther at a quicker rate. And these other countries don't necessarily have these technologies. So, they're up against a behemoth. Let's just put it that way. They're up against a behemoth. Elites exploring Eastern culture. So this is how it happens. They're there for colonialism. Now, a lot of these people, elite families, are there not for spiritual reasons. They're there to basically for resources. It could be farmlands, tobacco, tea, opium. There's the materials, silks. There's all sorts of reasons why they're expanding into different areas. They could want, and then they're going to get people to be their slaves in those areas to get those materials done. They're going to use the local populations. You've got European powers. We're talking Britain and India, France and Southeast Asia, and North Africa. They're intensifying their efforts to impose Western systems. They're viewing the indigenous populations as uncivilized who need to be civilized. But of course, like I said earlier, it's not just you who is influencing and taking over their systems. You're going to be influenced too. I know psychopaths think they won't, but they're going to be influenced, especially if they bring their children there. So it says, however, many future occultists who were from elite families, they were sent to explore foreign areas, like Gerald Gardner, for instance. He was a sickly child, so they sent him abroad. And he learned a lot of fascinations he had is because he was exposed to a lot of these cultures. They began to be influenced by the histories of these religions in many of these Eastern areas. Invention of archaeology. Now I know archaeology is considered a official scientific study, but its origins is basically the elites were ransacking a lot of areas. They're taking artifacts. They were burning human bones and remains as campfire. And people start to call them out for that. They start to be like, hey, what are you doing? This is a little bit vulgar itself. And so to cover their tracks, they literally turned it into a legitimate study called archaeology. They're like, that gave them the authority. They're like, this is a study out of Cambridge. I'm the archaeologist, right? And so it gives them this authority to explore these ancient relics because they're not burning the bodies now. They're going to preserve the relics in museums. So then they make money off of them. They're taking control. So regions such as Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Eastern Europe, India, and others were viewed as different realms steeped in mystery, magical practice. During this time abroad, Gerald Gardner, like I said, absorbed many ideas and influence that would later shape his interest and influence him to start Wicca. And we have the rise of Egyptomania. It's super important. And there was 2 different phases, I believe, and the earliest one started with Napoleon. Okay. So the craze was fueled by events like the decipherment of the Rosetta Stones and Napoleon's campaigns, and it manifested into architecture, fashion. They had they would do gruesome practices like mummy wrapping, unwrapping parties. So I guess they unwrap the mummy at parties. It was crazy times. You would never do that today. The studies obviously of archaeology has become a little more professional where they understand some more things that they didn't understand then. It also reflected deeper anxieties about the future of the British Empire, using ancient Egypt as a mirror for imperial decline. We'll get to that too with Bram Stoker, because clearly Bram Stoker has some anxieties about the occult as much as he uses it. Napoleon's Egyptian campaigns had a significant impact on European culture. And so it started that first phase of Egyptomania. And of course, the second phase being 1922, discovery of Tutankhamun's nearly intact tomb. That was whew. It was obviously by Howard Carter, and it ignited a more powerful wave of Egyptomania that really influenced Art Deco. I was just at a theater called Peary's Egyptian Theater that's over 100 years old, that was obviously highly influenced by Egyptomania that happened in the 1920s because of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. And there he is there on the side. So Egypt factors hugely into the occult, and you can see it through a lot of the studies of the Golden Dawn. Aleister Crowley, who obviously was in Golden Dawn, Hermeticism, all this stuff is really, it's these scientific, it's technology that pushes it, but they bring back these spiritual practices and the discovery of these artifacts. And imagine being from England and you see this, and it's so amazing, and these pyramids, you've never seen anything like this before, and it's literally a merger of this authoritative culture like England with this totally different land in the Middle East. Influenced practitioners, the foundation of Western esotericism. Ancient Egypt is considered a primary source for Western magic. It's got concepts like alchemy, although, look, alchemy was phasing in a lot sooner. You got John Dee, that stuff, but still, a lot of that stuff where they were saying they were turning, stuff into gold, is also a cover. They're trying to make it look like we're trying to get gold, but they're doing spiritual stuff as well. There was a cover. It's okay. So we got alchemy, astrology, magical traditions, Hellenistic, Roman periods in Egypt. So they're all being influenced. They've integrated into occult groups. So some of the occult groups that are integrating these discoveries from these elites traveling abroad and staking claims to these lands are Freemasons, Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley's AA, the Theosophical Society. Now, Madame Blavatsky was from Russia, but she too traveled the world. The Anthroposophical Society, the Ancient Mystical Order, Rosicrucians. They heavily incorporate Egyptian themes into there. There's probably a lot more, but those are just a couple of them. These groups often develop complex system around Egyptian hieroglyphs, funerary practices, viewing them as a source of profound ancient wisdom. Hello, Mr. Incognito. Welcome to the show. Second half. And then, of course, there's a Buddhist influence. We'll talk about that too. Was it Mathers from the Golden Dawn? At one point, he left, took off to study Buddhist techniques. The Theosophical Society by Helena Blavatsky incorporated Buddhist concept like the Maitreya, a figure prophesied to return as a messianic figure. There is historical evidence suggesting early contact between Buddhist missionaries in ancient Egypt. So Buddhist missionaries influenced Egypt, which influenced the other occultists, hundreds, thousands of years later. It includes potentials for migration of Buddhist gymnosophists to Egypt and the Meroitic Empire, as detailed by Ancient Origins. Now, the Order of the Golden Dawn. And the reason why we're going to focus on the Order of the Golden Dawn is because they would have been probably the biggest influence on Bram Stoker. Out of any of these theosophical, any of these groups, secret society, hidden knowledge, and occult just means hidden. And one of the reasons they have to be hidden is because, like I said, the church would not approve of that. And maybe for an elite, it wouldn't be a harsh punishment, but it certainly would be a punishment. I don't know. I don't think they would see it very. When you're a monotheistic religion, it's about control. You don't want people splintering off, and you don't want people adapting this, but no system can control it for long. So the Order of the Golden Dawn, of course, was another secret society. It was founded in London in 1888 to study and practice Western occultism, including Hermeticism, the Kabbalah, and magic. Kabbalah is a Jewish tradition, which official Judaism does not accept, as they don't believe in it, but it's ancient, and Golden Dawn adapted it, but it did not say the same. So they turned it into their own. They kind of made their own little version of it. the Golden Dawn attracted influential figures like the poet W.B. Yeats, magician Aleister Crowley, before it dissolved in the early 1900s. The original order's teachings, which combine multiple esoteric traditions, have influenced modern magic and led to the creation of various successor organizations, including Thelema and OTO. Those are just a few. I mean, there's so many cults out there today, guys, who really knows. So as for Bram Stoker, we got 3 pictures here. J.J. Brodie Innes and Pamela Coleman Smith. They were 2 friends of his. He had other friends in the Golden Dawn. I looked about stuff. Some people say Bram Stoker was in the Golden Dawn. In one of my past shows, I said he was, but we don't have him on a list saying he was, but he's definitely friends with many of them and highly influenced. He had a complex relationship with the occult, which is evident in his personal correspondences and themes within his work like Dracula. While he was friends with members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and had a writer's interest in subjects in things like mesmerism, Stoker was very scientific and rational, and you can tell this from the way that he writes Dracula. He's very scientific. Stoker never leaves England or the United Kingdom to do stuff. He goes to the museum or the library or the archives and gets everything from pamphlets. So he's very meticulous with data, very Western. It's very Western. But he inserts a lot of this information into it, almost like a fear. Almost like he inserts it almost villainistically, like as if it's something to be wary about or it's something unknown. If you go there, you can lose yourself. You can lose your logical, sane self in this world of esoteric and magic and Draculas and vampires. It's something I get the sense that he's not entirely comfortable with it, but yet he's steeped and he's surrounded by people like Pamela Coleman Smith and J.D. Brodie Innes. I'll show you some of J.D. Brodie Innes' books too, by the way. We'll pop it up right now. Which one is this? Is this him? Yep. The Sorcerer and His Apprentice by S.L. MacGregor and J.J. Brodie Innes. So that's one of his books, The Sorcerer and His Apprentice. Another one is this one here. Oh, J.W. Brodie Innes, Dennis Wheatley, Library of the Cult. He wrote The Devil's Mistress. Here's an inside of an older version. The Devil's Mistress by J.W. I called him J.J. He's J.W. Brodie Innes. So he's writing occult books and strange, weird, and here, look, we're looking at a more repressive society with religion, and they're going into these Eastern cultures, and they might be looking at religious stuff and seeing strange sexual practices they've never seen before. I know it's in reverse now. Like it seems to be the East is being affected by our weird stuff, but back then it was in reverse where they were looking at strange sexual practices, maybe that, maybe the Kama Sutra, and they were like, what's this? And, it's a way, like if you are suddenly removed from your society, from your home in England and you're abroad, sometimes you don't have to be that person you were in England. You can be a little more naughty. You can let your shadow self come out. You can behave in different ways that are more that you can either get away with or they're more accepted there. So the question I said again, was Bram Stoker ever a member of the Golden Dawn? Now, Bram Stoker never leaves England, so he doesn't have this experience that these other occultists have had and study abroad. He's not into studying the occult, but he's writing a book that expressly, and we'll go through different examples in a few minutes, but he's expressing the occult in this big time. It's there. So Bram Stoker is often rumored to have been involved in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but there is no evidence he was ever a member. What is true is that Stoker moved in the same literary and theatrical circles as several of the figures. Yeah, he knew W.B. Yeats, Florence Farr. I mentioned the other 2 before. The proximity has fueled speculation, especially because Dracula reflects themes familiar to late Victorian occultism, but the record shows Stoker as an associate and a friend of the Golden Dawn members, not initiate. The thing is there's not really a record. There's records online where people have written these people were members, but it's not like they had a list because it's a secret society. But he does have a knowledge of occult ideas, likely came through the social overlap, research for fiction, and the fact that he's immersed and surrounded by people with occult revival in London who are practicing. Remember, it's still illegal at this time. These occult practices, homosexuality, all this stuff is illegal. So you have to keep it secret. You can't just be flamboyantly out with it. So a lot of people have a persona of propriety, and then they do certain activities. This is so shadow work. It's so shadow self. It's crazy. All right. It is very crazy. So the occult in Dracula, I put step inside the hidden world woven through Bram Stoker's Dracula. We explore the novel's rich tapestry of occult references. Folk magic, sacred talismans, psychic bonds, shape-shifting. It's all here. So here's a couple of examples. And remember, when you read Dracula, you're noticing that Jonathan Harker is kind of Bram Stoker. And he's going into this weird world. And we may not view Romania as that extreme, but back then, when globalism is just starting out and they're exploring, it is viewed that way. And it's so strange because these elite societies, this empire is out trying to change their world and take it over, but they also have this weird and strange fear of being taken over by their world, which would fuel more of the need to conquer it and destroy that magical mysticism. But here's some examples. Of course, you've got folk magic, which would have been in England's history as well. The use of garlic, crucifixes, communion wafers, sacred Christian symbols. That's more Western. You can see that in Catholicism. They've got forbidden knowledge and esoteric disease. Van Helsing, he's a kabuki weird. He's from, I think is he Dutch? I believe he's Dutch, but he has this kabuki weird kind of, what would you call it? Not eclectic, but eccentric personality. In the book, he's a lot more stiff in some of the movies, but he's got this knowledge of mesmerism and occultism. Why else would he know about vampires, right? He's willing to leave the world of the logic, even though he's a doctor, and investigate this world of the vampire because he knows it really exists in this unknown area of the world. So it's this. They're saying it's an occult trope, but it comes from Dracula, the scholar who uncovers hidden, forbidden knowledge. Shape-shifting and astral projection, Count Dracula transform into wolf, bat, fog, dust. In occult traditions, shape-shifting symbolizes astric or etheric manipulation, a soul altering its form beyond physical limits. There's a question whether Dracula really has a soul. He may have lost his soul and did a bad deal. There's psychic influence and mesmerism. Remember, Dracula hypnotizes his victims. He telepathically communicates with them. Hypnotic control over Mina, over Lucy, controls their actions, seduces them. They give up their will. You'll see in movies they remove their crucifixes from their necks. This really mirrors Victorian fascinations with mesmerism, animal magnetism, and occult mind control practices. There was a lot of that going on in Victorian times. Dracula's need for sacred soil. He has to have his sacred soil from his land in his coffin for him to revitalize his energy, a connection to the soil. Consecrated Transylvanian earth. That is there. It's very religious. It's very occult. They've got roots of power, ley lines, energetic connection to homeland and ancestral graves. Whereas here in England, they're running around in archaeology like disturbing graves, digging up. There's curses. Look at Egyptology, and you'll see curses attached to King Tut and Lord Carnarvon and all those people. You look it up; it's there. They could have just got diseases because they were digging up graves. That's the chance you take, but they wouldn't have realized that. Now we have a little bit more sacred tools as a magician implements communion wafer burns Dracula. We got him, Van Helsing, using stuff in ceremonial magic. He's got the cross. He's got the holy water, garlic, placing things indoors, sealing things up, using occult practices that we would say to use today. You would hear in witchcraft. The power of names. Characters attempt to understand Dracula's origin, name, lineage, and title to seek him out. Names hold magical powers in the occult. You have to know the name of a demon so you can have authority over it. Undead lore as occult cosmology. Stoker draws from Eastern Europe folklore, medieval demonology, occult texts like The Vampire by Dom Calmet. It gives Dracula this sort of esoteric, genuine tradition kind of feel to it. We also have things like Arabian Nights mentioned in Dracula. Actually, in the novel, it also features in the 1992 movie with the Francis Ford Coppola version. But in the book, it occurs early in the book, Jonathan Harker's journal. While he's traveling through Eastern Europe, he compares the strange customs and landscapes that he encounters to the exotic, magical world of Arabian Nights, which means that he's read it. So it's talking about the influence from the tales of Arabian Nights. Eric says, and Eric's reading the book, I haven't read it for a while. Stoker points out that the vampires can become younger from blood also. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Arabian Nights. And you also have undead lore as occult cosmology. Stoker draws from Eastern Europe folklore. Yeah, we went over that. I'm repeating it. Power of names. Did that one already. Ritual purification of Lucy's tomb. And there's so much more. And if you guys see them, point them out. If you're coming post stream, leave a comment and let me know some of the other occult examples that you see in the book. Or you could say one you see in the movie. We're focusing on the novel because it's a product of the Victorian Occult revival. You've got the ritual breaking open of Lucy's tomb, tracking her, staking her. It's like a rite of exorcism, magical banishment. You got symbolic purification through the stake of wood, decapitation, garlic, consecrated tools. It is the same repetition of occult ideas. Where do you get that from? I mean, you can't just dig that out of nowhere. And when you get into the movies, you see a lot of occult, especially in the Hammer horror films. There's sacrifices to revive Dracula in some of the movies, the sequels. They have to slit someone's throat, let the blood drop on the bones, and then Dracula is revived. You see stuff like that. Satanic rites of Dracula, Dracula AD. It gets really occultish and brings in those vibes in the movies because we had another occult revival, of course, in the 70s, late 60s, and into the 70s was another occult revival, witchcraft, folk horror revival. And then we saw folk horror revival in the 2018s, 2019s in our time. So it always revives and comes back every couple of decades. You can never keep this stuff down because people are generally fascinated by it. But the Victorian one, of course, has this imagery that it's rife with. I mean, you've got so much. You got Jack the Ripper. You've got what's it called? Jekyll and Hyde. You've got gaslit horse carriage, gas lamps in the street, mist and fog in London. You've got a lot of imagery, and then you mix that with this Egypt influence. You've got magicians like Aleister Crowley, W. Waits, all these artists who are exploring in ways that were not allowed before. Still taboo, not really allowed, but they're pushing this into the Western system and they're bringing it from the East. And in the novel of Dracula, it's something I really wanted to detail, is Stoker has a fear of this. And he has a fear of this, of how it's going to affect not only his sanity, that they're all going to go crazy. He talks about this a lot in the book, but how it's going to affect the Western women, the good, fine women of England, how their souls are going to be taken over. You can look at Dracula as this metaphor for taking over the good English women and turning them into these kind of like his brides from the East, these women who are wanton women and hate babies and are murdering, men and draining their blood and having many partners and promiscuous, and it goes on and on. It's 100 years later, 130 years later, I consider it a legit concern, actually. This is a quote from Arabian Nights. It says, "In the land where magic walks with men, the unseen governs the scene." That's a quote from one of the stories of Arabian Nights. And Arabian Nights is, it's a whole bunch of different kind of short stories together by Richard F. Burton. And we're almost done here. And we say, inner fear of Eastern influence. Bram Stoker wrote Dracula at a time when many Victorians viewed Eastern cultures, religion, and spiritual practices through a lens of suspicion and exoticism. And that tension permeates the novel. Stoker taps into contemporary anxieties about the mysterious East by portraying Transylvania, and by extension, the borderlands of Eastern Europe and the Near East, as a place where ancient beliefs, folk magic, and non-Christian spiritual forces still thrive beyond the Western rationalism. The Count himself becomes a symbolic embodiment of that fear, an aristocratic foreign power whose origins lie in the world shaped by occult traditions, the Ottoman influence, and non-Western mysticism. Stoker's narrative reflects a broader cultural unease that Eastern religions and esoteric philosophies were encroaching upon British identity, challenging the Victorian belief in the superiority of Western science, Christianity, and the empire. And I think that stuff's still playing out today. And it's ironic that they have a fear, because here's the thing. When you have an empire that's going out and essentially expanding its empire and taking over other areas, taking their resources, war, domination, shuffling the people around. They're still doing it today, and they bring those people to your country and they mix things up. It creates that anxiety for the local people. It creates that anxiety, but the anxiety comes from the fact that we're destroying their culture. We're invading their culture, and hence them bringing their culture to our culture. And this is an elite thing. And a lot of the people who were pushing this and doing this were people who were members of the elite, who were members of these secret societies. And so it may have started originally as like this defiance against the church so that they could hide their information, but it's not even 6 degrees of separation as much as it's convoluted to understand the effects of that. The effects of researching science leads to all these inventions, which leads to the system. It takes it, adapts it, and uses that, right? So if you invent something, you're going to present it to people of power, people with money, people who can get that out there. And then they're going to have their own interests and take that out. It's like technology and the internet. Yeah, I'm podcasting, but there's rich people who today, they're not necessarily, they're expanding ships and they're expanding military, but they're expanding the mind, they're expanding the internet everywhere, and they want a big control on it. Take the internet 25 years ago, completely different territory. There wasn't even social media apps or Facebook or anything like that. Totally different territory. It's like the Wild West. And the more we expand and stay on social media, the more it becomes, eroded, invaded by these big systems and a control system to watch you. And it becomes its own world, a fragile world, a world that's driving us crazy. Maybe much like how Bram Stoker felt with the East coming there. We feel the same way today. It's still relevant, that whole concept. But the fascination with those cultures is real. I know people who have been to those lands, have been to Turkey, have been to those ancient lands, and have said, look, there's something there. There's some energy that's ancient, and I could feel it. It feels so different from where I was born. You can almost feel things walking beside you in the streets, like almost like they were following you. And that belief still exists there heavily in some of those areas about spirits and good and bad. Just fast forward up to the 70s when we had The Exorcist that came out, and we talked about The Exorcist and how its writer, author, basically worked for the FBI as undercover and doing psychological warfare over in Lebanon. He was Lebanese, a Christian Lebanese, but he's doing psychological warfare. But he writes this book, and it's almost like a way to control the way people perceive, because they know they're going into these countries over there and they're going to be plotting all these things to take over them, and they're almost preparing you to see that as like a demon coming from there to here, and only Christianity can save you from it. You see, these novels are always expressing that. So that fear, which is weird because it's a fear that's coming from our own society's like insistence to keep expanding into all these other territories. So the system keeps expanding, but the people are having all these anxieties, but that are being produced by the system. Egg, chicken, I don't know what comes first. You guys tell me what you think. But very, very interesting stuff with Bram Stoker and the occult. Now, I looked up, I'm going to share our screen again. We're going to go hunting. A hunting we will go. I looked up whether Bram Stoker knew Aleister Crowley, and I think he did in general. They would have known of each other at the time. It'd been the Golden Dawn, but I don't think they were like best buds or bros or anything like that. But they certainly had a knowing of each other. Dun, 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 dun. We've got a how to join a secret society. I'm going to say this again. I'm not for joining massive groups. I would avoid against it. Was that the one we wanted? Yeah, no, I just have some visuals here. This one is Annie Horman. One of the things about the Golden Dawn is women were allowed to be members, which is interesting. And I'm not sure entirely what their position was and how it was different from men. I've never gone into the Golden Dawn in that level. I'm sure Aleister Crowley in writing saw them as all equals, but perhaps in practice, that's not how it played out with him. I don't think that's how it played out. What you write and what you philosophize and how you are, those can be two very different things. So here we have how to join a secret society. All right. So there is W.B. Yeats, who is a member of this. Now, I don't know if what this serves as, because my understanding is these secret societies serves as this sort of research, but then became this very magical exploration with the introduction of different occults. I'm not sure if they actually what the results were. It would be interesting to know people's results. I know that Crowley, from these diaries here, was very much into mapping out his rituals and testing to see what worked and what didn't work. Same with Gerald Gardner. So there was this really studious and logical way of approaching the occult and writing it down and keeping track of that I'm not sure East would have been so approaching it in the same way. So you can see that blending. Bram Stoker was very much the same way, this logical man. You could almost see Dracula, like I said, as a confession of this anxiety of opening up a Pandora's box by exploring past the realms of Europe. And this whole notion of like, if we just hold on to our sanity, if we just be logical enough, if we just write everything down and test it, we can control it. We can control where this goes. And I think we can see that eventually no one can control it. We're doing the same thing now, but except for we're not writing them in journals and doing notes like I have here. We're doing it in algorithms and databases and thinking we can control everything. And do we really? do we really control everything at the end of the day? Let's go to TikTok and see if we can find some interesting videos. I have to be careful because I don't want them playing songs here that can get me in trouble. Let's see if we can find. What should we type in? See if there's anything. I typed a lot. Who knows? Oh, this is really good. This is really one I think we should watch. It's called The Birth of the Silk Road that built civilization itself. This is like one of the foundations of globalization.
It wasn't just a trade route. It was the ancient world's internet, connecting empires, cultures, and destinies. Over 2,000 years ago, a young Chinese emperor sent his emissary west and changed history forever. Silk, gold, and spices traveled thousands of miles, but so did ideas, religions, and technology. For the first time, the East met the West, and the world became smaller. But it wasn't easy. Deserts, bandits, and empires fought for control of this golden artery. Even after empires fell, the Silk Road spirit lived on. In every trade, every idea, every journey, the Silk Road didn't just move goods, it moved humanity forward.
Okay, so we see that this is early globalization. This is trade routes. This is why this is the Western way of thinking. And in Dracula, those things combine with this ancient spirit and practices. When they might believe there's demons, or there's an evil count, or there's a nefarious, voodoo practitioner, or zombie witch doctor, whatever it is that you're going to meet. And surely it's definitely true that you're going to meet some nefarious figures when you're traveling beyond the safeties of your country. It's why I always tell people who are on a spiritual journey to be really careful when they go to jungles to have an ayahuasca journey or something like that, right? Yeah, we don't. But yeah, you can see that this stuff is globalism is not some kind of new thing. We're just expanding and expanding and expanding, and different people are in charge. And we won't get into a certain country over in the Middle East that's causing some issues right now that people are not happy about, or a lot of people are not happy about. We're not about to get into that one. That's not the premise of this show today. We want to sort of stay away from that stuff and just be aware that it's happening. But I think the final lesson to be learned on this is when we're going into these cultures and we think we're going to dominate them, which we do in certain ways, there is a price to pay. And that is you give up some of your own culture and you become influenced by their culture. That could represent a lot of positives, or it can represent a lot of negatives. Right now their populations are producing and reprocreating at a rate much faster than European cultures, and that is bad news for our culture if we want our culture to keep thriving. I don't know how else to say it, but it's bad news. But as you can see, the same tactics are still going on, except for instead of the Industrial Revolution, it's the Industrial Revolution mixed with this technocratic kind of empire that we're going to see get crazier and crazier and more controlling and more expansion in the way that we've never seen before. So it doesn't surprise me that you're going to see people going back to either some kind of orthodox thing that they feel helps their society, or that people get more involved and more influenced by other religions that they've never discovered. And it's why you had this happen in Victoriana. You've seen the Egyptomania happen even before Victoriana times. You've seen it happen during Napoleon's times. Every time there's a discovery, there's a new hype where the occult and practices that are considered non-Western or non-scientific or non-clinical emerge, and people grab onto them because ultimately it's this idea that it gives you a special power. It gives you a special a way of influencing the world. And maybe when times are crazy and things are falling apart, people are always looking for that special influence, a special way that they can seek some kind of a spirit, a demon, connect with their ancestors. I'm always for ancestral magic myself, is connecting with your family. I think that's the most powerful thing you can do. It's probably the most special thing that you can do, as opposed to, I don't know, some kind of demon from Iraq or some kind of, but it's interesting how we can go back and look at Dracula and see his anxieties in that novel of East Meets West, and we can still look and see that stuff still playing out today, but just in a much different staging. Similar concepts, but different staging. And we can see it not just physically influenced by bringing things in. We're now interacting in a world that is digital, that is, we don't even know if it's real or not. We have lots of people from those countries, being brought into our countries and working for our countries, and we have a lot of people in those countries, running these farms with phones and all, where they're like bot farms, and it's this weird mixture that's happened with this different type of connectivity. In my opinion, the only way to ignore it is to control your own mind and shut it off and remove yourself from it. In fact, I may have a period, a few days over Christmas, where we go tech out. We go tech out. Get the tech out. Get the tech out of here. Well, so I hope you guys enjoyed that little mini presentation. Like I said, we're kind of merging the idea in one. We covered Pastor Rob McCoy and Donald Trump. They're both kind of like pastors. They're like mega church pastors, if you ask me, and how they manipulate people. We covered the ASMR and how that drove me crazy. Yes, Eric reminds us it's the AI, the tech AI world, the world of the artificial intelligence taking over. Maybe the demons that they were afraid of in these books, in these lands, it's like, come to our land. And we've released it, and now it's going to be the AI. Hey, I was watching, what's his name? You're like, what's his name, Melissa? He's that comedian. He used to be on Joe Rogan. He's been on Joe Rogan a few times. I love watching his show. He's quite funny. I'll find him for you in a second. He's in my history. I don't know how far back in my history, but I'll find it. It is Tim Dillon. And he was going on about the AI demon, that he's pretty sure that this administration with Palantir is summoning an AI demon, is going to take over, and we are all in big trouble. So we got an AI demon coming. That, according to Tim Dillon. Yeah. Lame Duck Donald and the Immigration Nation. That was his episode, Tim Dillon. You can check it out. AI demon coming into manifestation. So maybe Bram Stoker's fears were right. He wrote it as Dracula, but today we're like, AI demon. It's coming. Thanks, Palantir. And remember, it's weird, but these guys are all influenced by these authors. A lot of these tech bros are influenced by Tolkien. They're influenced by C.S. Lewis. They're influenced by a lot of sci-fi, maybe even Star Wars. They're like they want to be Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Life imitates art, art imitates life, back and forth and back and forth. Palantir is literally named after some spying globy thing from Lord of the Rings. I'm pretty sure that's where they got that moniker from. It's a variation of it. I don't know what to say. And creepy enough, Who runs Palantir again? What's his name? He's steep in my brain's just going blank. I know who he is, but I keep forgetting his name. If you remember his name, Eric. Quick question. Go ahead. Shoot, Eric. Got a quick question. I'll look up who runs Palantir because I'm going blank. Yeah, I know it. Peter Thiel. That's it. It's Peter Thiel. Alex Karp and Peter Thiel. They're creepy. And Peter Thiel keeps going on about the Antichrist, weird sex act, like it gets weird. He says, you're interested in Eastern folklore and supernatural. One of my favorite movies is Leprechaun. Oh, that's got Warwick Davis in it. I don't know if I've ever seen the full movie. It looks a little gruesome. Have you ever studied the history of Leprechaun? You know, I haven't, but when I was a little girl, I was really obsessed with Leprechaun. I'd seen this show on Twilight Zone, and I think one of them featured, I was a big Twilight Zone. Yeah, I know you're referring to the horror series. Totally. I got that one because Warwick Davis is in the movie. But I used to watch the Twilight Zone, and I think there was one where there was a leprechaun on it. I was like 7 years old, and I was super convinced that if I like left stuff out, that leprechaun would come and give me some money. So I like tried every night to like get the leprechaun to come, and of course it never happened. I'm still poor. But yeah, I was huge into, it wasn't the old Twilight Zone. It was like the newer one that hit the 80s. And I would watch it on Friday nights. And I just, for some reason, thought like I could, like, I was like, I'm going to test this out. I'm going to test this leprechaun thing out. And it never happened. I didn't see a leprechaun. And maybe my offerings weren't good enough. Maybe I'm 07. What could I give him but like some Barbie doll clothes and some chocolate or something? Like, what did I have to give him? I was like a 7-year-old in the ghetto or whatever. Like, what did I have? Sorry, leprechaun. I haven't studied the leprechaun a lot. I do have an Irish factor background from my grandfather that's Irish. So maybe I should look into the leprechaun a bit more. But when I was little, I was convinced that if I just left him some cereal or some chocolate or Barbie dolls, he would show up. And I even built a little house out of a shoebox. And, well, shoot, it didn't work. It just didn't work. But yeah, Peter Thiel's an interesting guy. He's creepy. Eric says, we do live in the Twilight Zone. That's why I'm disappointed that leprechaun didn't show up. Because we do live in the Twilight Zone, and I fully expected. I've always lived in the Twilight Zone. I've always been interested in this stuff since I was little. You know, folklore and stuff like that was part of where I was born, and people just, I don't know if they believe in it. I think there's oh, that's nonsense, but there's people who believe in it 100%. And I lived in a spooky house, and then I moved to a different place in Canada, and I was deep into the Twilight Zone. Me and my friend really loved it. And then I got into Nightmare on Elm Street. That's a big leap. As a teenager, I loved it, but yeah, there's some interesting stuff, and it's strange that we're kind of dealing with these really elite figures that could be Dracula. Like Peter Thiel's really strange. There's just something really bizarre. Have you ever gone ghost hunting? Yeah, me and my husband have gone to different ghost hunting locations. In fact, we were in a building in Salt Lake City, county building, over 100 years old, 150 years old, I'm not sure, where they had tried Ted Bundy for kidnapping in 78, I think it was, in 1978, and we got to film the courtroom and go in this underground tunnel that they used to walk him from the jail to the courtroom. It's not a courtroom anymore. It doesn't operate that way, and the jail is no longer there. I think it's a library. But yeah, Ted Bundy had been there in the 70s. We did that building. We did a couple of them. We've done a few buildings locally around here. Haven't done it for a while, but it was interesting. And I didn't know when I went to that building to do the ghost hunt that it had anything to do with Ted Bundy. That was just a side effect. If you want to get involved, all we did was there's the groups that will run stuff like that. There was just a local group that ran ghost tours. You can pay them a fee and go with them. So you just got to look up a local group. And then you just pay them a fee, show up, and see how it goes. So we went to the county building. We went to an old grist mill. We went to the Salt Air where Marilyn Manson did a concert. We also went to Pete Neat. That's the old academy school. That's really old. I'm not sure. I think we might have went to one other place, but we went to a few places. So you just gotta look up somewhere local and see if people do that. And it can be weird. Some groups are funny and they get political or jealous or they're controlling or you can get all sorts of people who want to manipulate their evidence. Like we've been in some of the places. There was this one people who came, they were paid to do the ghost hunt. They gave a fee and they were just really pretentious and we just ignored them. You know, they were the type of people who will go and bust into graveyards illegally and then wonder why they get in trouble. It's like, well, don't bust into the graveyard, bro. Don't do something illegal. It's not cool. So yeah, we've done that. Yeah, it's fun. It can be boring too because sometimes stuff doesn't happen. The county building was definitely haunted, and the Pizza Neat was. I'm sure the grist mill was too, but those two buildings were definitely had some activity there. I would recommend. I don't think you can get into the county building anymore. I think they stopped allowing access. I think we were one of the last groups that got to go in. So lucky us. Lucky us. There's some people they just don't want that. They don't want that attention, and I can understand that. I can totally understand that. So, yeah, here we are, all this time later, and some of the stuff in Dracula novel. That's why it's always relevant, and it never goes out. And people still kind of are big on Dracula. I don't have too much more. Eric says he will go ghost hunting next year and let you guys know how it goes. I'll make a video. Yeah, well, here's the thing. You can do it and put up a video reel on TikTok. I still have some of the footage. I have all my footage from some of the things we've done. And I could show it on one of the shows one time. I'm going to tell you guys what's coming up because I haven't put this on the channel yet. I'm going to either tomorrow morning or later tonight, I'm going to get this show ready for the channel. But Tuesday, I have a super cool guest coming, 2 guests, Pastor Dave and Pastor D. And they're going to be talking about that UFO Atlas 1-3 whatever. That's what we're going to be talking about on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So join that stream. I got 2 pastors coming on to talk. They have their own channel. I'll link it. I'll find all the links for you. I'll link it in the description. I should have that link up by tomorrow morning, and you'll see it on the channel. It is Pastor Dave and Pastor D. We are going to be talking about that Atlas. I can't remember the number, but it's that thing. It's flying. I think it's just going to fly past us. Everyone's going to move on to the next thing, but we'll see what they have to say about it. They seem to be interested in it. They suggested it as a topic. And so it should be an interesting conversation. That's Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then if I do a show on Thursday, it's just going to be a general. I don't have anything planned. But Sunday we're going back to Aleister Crowley, and we're going to go to the Abbey of Thelema in Cefalù. My guest, Gary Parsons, will be here. We will be starting at 4 p.m. Eastern. He's hailing all the way from London. He'll still be in London. He won't be here. But he's coming. It'll be 9 o'clock there. So he's going to talk about his time as a Thelemist. He's going to talk about his exploration of the Abbey. I think it was in the 80s or early 90s that he went. So probably in a lot better state than it is today. So that is Sunday. So Tuesday and Sunday for sure. Join the channel. And if I do something on Thursday, I still am painting and renovating. It'll be a quick one. We talk about some different topics on the occult, on Dracula, on vampires. But this one is particularly interesting because we can just never get out of the occult, really. I mean, we can just never get out of this concept of the occult and how it's influencing society. And I know those little mega pastors, they use that occult stuff to terrify people, to make people afraid, so they can control it. Matthew says, great presentation. Thanks very much. Best wishes to all. And of course, again, guys, that presentation's there. The download link is for paid subscribers on Substack and Patreon. That's patreon.com/CW/Order of Velvet Bite. And of course, it's melissadonharris.substack.com. And the website has all the link at melissadonharris.com. You can go there. That presentation's up there for you guys. And you can, like I was saying, with the evangelist churches, they use a lot of this stuff. And these countries, you can see them doing it right now. They are having people afraid of Islamic people. And so it fuels their invasion of them and gets you afraid, and then they control you, and they're the powerful pastor that has all the answers. You see Rob McCoy doing this all the time. They're supposed to be giving spiritual advice, and they are giving highly politically charged discussions and getting you to hate other people, and they're literally in a church telling you to be the Scopio, not Scorpio, the Scopio, scoping people out and reporting them to them, anyone that is against them. That's some divisive fear tactics. And because we covered that with our favorite pastor, Rob McCoy, who's highly involved in Charlie Kirk assassination, allegedly, and his son, you should be watching out for that. What was his church again? His church was the I told you what it was. I forgot which one it was. It was that one out of California. Candace covers it. She actually talks about that church and how bad it is. But you see them deceiving people, and more we're going to hear this. Be afraid of cultures over there because they haven't. Now it's not that they're evil or demon or uncivilized. Now they've got an atomic weapon, or they've got weapons of mass destruction, which they don't have. We have them. Israel has them. They don't have them, and it's all fear tactics. So we should have a show one day about Alan Watts, about removing ourselves from this, about let me know, guys, too, if you want stuff on health or wellness to talk about that as a topic, because I've got a whole bunch of health and wellness stuff that I focus on all the time. Also, really look at other characters like Alan Watts, because he was more of a positive East meets West, positive about Eastern cultures, and we can cover him. I've got a couple of out of print books of his as well here that I can kind of scroll through, and we can talk about him and his strengths and his weaknesses. There's some sketchy stuff about him too. It's good. So we should do a show on him soon, and I'm probably going to take some time off at Christmas. My husband's taking some time off, and it'll be interesting. I want to do a no tech time. I think that's what we have to do, is have times where we don't have technology, because this is definitely drawing our energy. And I appreciate everybody that shows up here, watches the show, and all that stuff. But of course, you have to have time away. Go hiking, go spend time with your family, go have a good meal, go get lots of sleep. I'm going to go and clean my house. We got another comment here by Eric. Melissa, you and your husband will really enjoy BuzzFeed Unsolved channel. If you guys haven't seen it already, I'll check it out. People keep asking me if I want to do watch some of these shows, these modern shows, and I think from all the research I've done about MK Ultra, and I was supposed to start the show off, I should be saying everything's not demons, everything's MK Ultra, because the more I study, the more I look at TV and everything that surrounds us, I realize, especially in the 20th century, that everything's MK Ultra. It's why when people tell me watch this, watch that, and it's coming out of Hollywood, I'm like, I'm not trying to be a bitch, but I just don't think I can watch that stuff. I'd rather watch an ASMR video. To be quite honest with you, I'd rather watch people go slop and chop and than watch half the other stuff out there, because I realize MK Ultra is so weaved into our lives that we've been brainwashed to such a insane degree that I don't even know if it's repairable. I don't even know how you would remove yourself from that. I have no idea, guys. But that was pretty much the gist of my presentation today and what I really wanted to talk about. I'm going to try and stay away from politics, but I can't guarantee you I won't do something like I did today with Pastor Rob and presented that poem of Donald Trump and how Donald Trump was really being manipulative and how I think the elites enjoy torturing us with some of these things. You can look up that snake poem, and I think it's a projection. You might think something else, but it's if it if it's not a projection consciously, subconsciously, it's a miracle projection. Like he nailed it. What he's just done to his base is literally that snake poem. 100%. You knew Donald Trump was an elite globalist pig hog when you voted for him, so you get what you get. That's how Donald Trump, I think, feels about it. And I think we're going to tie it up there. And remember, guys, what do I always say? Don't go to their events. Don't give them any money. And don't wear their logos. Yeah, we do have to do a logo show where we talk about the charging of sigils. So don't go to their events. Do not give them money. And that means these mass church events, these mega churches. And do not wear their logos. I will see you guys on Tuesday. I'm going to tie it up and go feed my doggos. And I thank you guys very much. Remember, go to melissadonharris.com, and I will see you on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Be here with me and my guests. See you later.